Well, we'll see how that goes. Nice. Okay. This all looks good. Hey, everybody. Thanks for showing up. I went through the streaming topics. Nothing really jumped out at me. One thing I'd like to do, just for me personally, I need to wrap up this one thing I've been pushing around forever. We've got, what am I looking for here? Wow, it's been a long time. Team kit, military mail. Do I even have it on here? That can't be right. Oh, there she is. Tech suit. Hey. Yeah, I moved the camera over to the other side just so I tried to put it up on top here on my second monitor. If you guys want to see that, how it's all set up, if you go to my YouTube channel, there is a hardware section, and you can see how my setup is. And I used to have the camera on the top of this Dell monitor, and I don't know, that wasn't working too well. It was kind of hard to balance on there. Cool. Let me load. You know what? She needs to be saved in her own folder. We'll call this ZBrush. TechSoup female. And I need to migrate over some files from my other computer, I guess. Actually, let me look at that real quick. Because that doesn't seem right. Streaming, really? I don't have that on here. Alright, let me make a note of that. Always something. Bring over tech suit female mech parts so I can get that done. I guess you might be on here. Let's see. Edit mode, F to frame. And if we turn everything on, nope, it's just her. Okay, well, maybe I won't work on her mech suit today. Clear my throat. Do I really sound that terrible? That's just my voice. I apologize that I sound like I need to clear my throat. One else says, Michael, I need to master ZBrush. Can you help me with some skills and techniques? Yes, I can. Go to my YouTube channel and knock yourself right out. And if you also go to my Pavlovich workshop on the ZBrush channel, you can feel free to knock yourself out there as well. All right. What do I want to do today? Let's see if we have anything in here that I feel like working on. I guess we could do some prehistoric creature work. That might be kind of fun. We've got Smirky we could work on a little bit. I don't really have anything set up here. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to sound. Let me see. I mean, I did just wake up. Maybe that's part of it. But yeah, this is just my voice. So you know what, just so I have this on my channel, I'm going to go here and we're going to go to Chops McGee. And we're going to go through a few steps on here to make him a little bit more sculptable. So what I'm going to do is start the draw menu here. And we're going to turn, you know what, we're just going to isolate his head right here. So we're going to go to Subtool, hold down Shift, turn everything off so we can just see his eyeball. Now we already have polygroups in here, kind of, that we can use that I think will work. But what we're going to do is we're going to hit Control W to make this all one polygroup. I'm going to give him a mouth bag, so we're going to go in here and we're going to grab a sphere. put this in here. And we're going to split mask points. And we're going to go into transparency mode. And I'm going to move this mouth bag underneath his head here. And we'll go ahead and scale this out. Okay, and since I inserted it on him, I can just control drag to go ahead and Dynamesh him. And we're going to go ahead and mask. If I go to transparency ghost, I can go through here and I can mask where that mouth will end up being, and then I can control tap to invert that, and I can use I guess it's not really a transpose line anymore, the gizmo, to pull that out. So now when I go through here, I can create a mouth bag. If I want to see what this mouth bag is going to look like, we can go ahead and turn this to a subtractive mesh, turn on live boolean, and now you can see how that mouth bag is going to react with this geometry here. I can also go into solo mode here, and we can Dynamesh that. That'll help a little bit. So we can go through here, let me see, preferences, edit, turn off align cursor to surface, and we can move this up. I think that'll work. And we can also use, what's it called? Pinch here, or we can also just mask all this out. Go to solo mode, hit W, position your gizmo, and you can shrink this down here if you want, but I think that'll work. So what two different things I can do here. I can either take it out of live boolean and then just merge these things down and Dynamesh it together, and that'll cut that out as a Dynamesh mesh. Or just with these two visible and live boolean showing, I can go down here to my boolean, hit make boolean mesh, and then I can go here, and now I have a boolean mesh with that other mesh cut out of it perfectly. I think I'm going to go that route. So I'm going to go here and insert my U mesh. Now I don't need my original mesh here, and I don't need my mouth bag anymore. And now I've got this guy's head. I'm going to go ahead and start breaking him up. I am going to raise that resolution just a tiny bit on him, just so I can get a little bit cleaner resolution on his face. And I'm also going to do a little bit of cleanup too. So I'm going to go into turn on X symmetry, and just in case I'll do a quick geometry modify topology mirror and weld, and we're going to use H polish to kind of polish him up a little bit. And any sort of major changes I want to make to him, I'm going to go ahead and inflate his nose up just a bit. And you know what? I'm going to fix, I think I went a little bit crazy on his nostrils here. And I'm also going to switch over to smooth stronger. And we're going to Damien standard brush. And also with the nostrils, you could, you know what, we might as well do that as well. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to grab a sphere, and I'm going to stick him right up in his nose here. I'm going to do a quick split mask points here. And I'm going to go ahead and center these and do it across the local symmetry, that LSym, and that way it won't push and pull across the x-axis. And I'm going to go ahead and position these nostrils here. And we're going to use these to cut out of my mesh. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm looking for polygroups here. So I'm going to, again, drop this below, go to subtractive, have my live boolean turned on, and we can go ahead now and make our boolean mesh. And one more time, we'll go ahead and insert that last U mesh here, and then we can go ahead and delete. There we go. And then again, hit X to go across X symmetry here. And I suppose we could do the same thing for the eyeballs, but I think this one we can just manually do. So if we hold down Control and start masking, that'll go ahead and start masking these eyeballs. One trick you can do is we can do mask outer, no, mask inner. There we go. You can do mask inner, which is basically this depth sample mask. If you hold down Control, and you can clone off this mask brush, this mask pin, and if you bring this, turn on depth mask and bring your inner depth up to a very small amount, not all the way to 0, but just to a smaller amount, that'll go ahead and respect surface changes here. So for example, if we grab a cylinder here, and we go ahead and make it Polymesh 3D, and we go ahead and crease it, and then we go ahead and apply that, and you hold down Control. Let's go ahead and Dynamesh this too as well. There you go. So as we're Dynameshing this, it'll kind of stop at that border, as opposed to if I just had mask pin, it wouldn't respect that border at all. So by having that one, we can now just kind of quickly go through here, and it's not perfect, but it'll go ahead and just kind of auto mask for me. So on the eyelids here, we can try to utilize that just a bit here. I basically want to stop this mask at the eyelids, and of course we can clean it up too. So we can hold down Control Alt and tap to sharpen that mask up, and then we'll go back to our mask pin, and we'll hold down Alt, and we will mask that out. Now when I have a mask on here, I can hit Control W to group mask clear masked. That's under your polygroup options here. And now what I'm going to do is just start painting more masks in here. So I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm also, well, I don't have to hold down Control for this. I'm going to go to Brush menu, Auto Masking, Mask by Polygroups up to 100. So when I start Control and masking, it'll stop at that polygroup. So whatever polygroup I start painting on, it'll go ahead and stop there. So now I'm going to, oh, I should mention this too. So what we're basically doing is go to zbrushforillustrators.com. If you scroll down, here's Tony Leonard. He's on the Pixelogic channel as well. He does really cool stuff with rendering and mech stuff. And then Steve James here. We're basically going through, and we've already blocked in the face, and now we're just going to go through and group this face so we can Z-remesh it a little bit better. And we're going to use these polygroups as guidelines instead of going in here to be Z-remesher guides. So if you can grab these Z-remesher guides, you can also go through here and you can draw curves to control surface, how it's going to draw your surface. You can also go in here, and also let's turn off line. There we go, I can see that a little bit better. So now we can just go through here and we can start masking where we want those polygroups to go, like so. And this will just allow us to control our edge flow with Z-remesher a little bit more. Sorry, my voice sounds like that. Let me, I should do like an accent. I am in Texas. Maybe if I did more of a cowboy thing. So how y'all doing this morning? Y'all like ZBrush? Y'all like watching ZBrush? I sure do like being in ZBrush. It's a real fun program, I should say. All right, so then we can hit, well, let's go ahead and make this part of the browse. We're going to take this here, and we're going to scoot this up like so, and this will come around the nose. Let's, right around to the nasal bone here. We'll go ahead and take this here. So kind of like a robin thing. Then we're going to hit Control W. And then again, all we got to do is hold down Control. And as soon as we start painting on this green one, it'll go ahead and auto mask, so it won't go into the blue area. And now we can do an eyelid loop. And hit Control W. And actually, let's clean this up a little bit. There we go. And then it looks like the nose will go in one. There we go. And we're going to do just one ring around the lips as well. Control W, and then hold down Control, and we'll go all the way around the bottom of the mouth here. Control W. And the inside of the ear. This is also going to help if I go to UV this thing as well. So what I'm going to do is take the entire ear and put it in a polygroup, so later I can pop this thing off as a polygroup, because you can turn on the polygroup option within ZBrush. And anything that kind of extrudes from your character, like the nose and stuff, it's kind of useful to UV by itself. In this case, what I would do is probably polygroup the entire nose by itself, which I could do later. I could change these polygroups up, but we can hit Control W. And then we can also, if you have any places like this where you got a stray polygroup in here, sometimes you can go down here to the polygroup menu. Where are we at? There we go. And we can do merge similar groups, or not merge similar groups, merge stray groups, and sometimes doing, and those will just kind of clean up little areas in here, but this one in here, if we isolate this red area, you're going to see I have some stragglers out here. So what I'm going to do is do a quick auto groups, and then I'll bring everything else back. I'll do a quick mirror and weld, and now I can grab this one, invert that, Control Shift clicking it, by the way. And now I can kind of merge those, and it looked like I had, nope. Okay, I thought I had another stray, but that's another easy way to clean that up. And then on this one here, even if you don't want to see everything, you can also isolate this, and then you can go through here and you can just Control Mask, or again, just have your masking set to Auto Mask up to 100, Auto Mask polygroups up to 100, and that'll go ahead and keep your masks constrained within there. There we go. We'll hit Control W. And maybe for the neck here. Don't want to continue that up a little bit more. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go here. Got a big neck. Control W. And right around the lips, I think we're going to need one solid loop here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to just isolate these two. And oh, you know what? We might need to inflate this a little bit. Let's do a little corrective sculpting. So I'm going to go ahead and inflate this out. Go ahead and turn off mask by polygroups. I just need a little bit more wiggle room. And probably, I probably should have fixed that a little bit in the sculpt, but I'm trying to leave the corners of the mouth open enough so I can go through here later and see if we can re-dynamesh. We'll leave it alone. And now I'm going to grab this upper lip here. I'm going to swap over. I want these to be all one polygroup, and we can even, oh wait, we mask by polygroups back up to 100. That's why. So I'm going to go here, around, and then on this bottom part here, there we go. And we are going to be polishing these lines just a little bit. And again, just real quick, maybe I could do a merge stray groups. And you can also go through here. This is a little bit high resolution, so I don't normally use ZModeler for this, but what you can do is you can hold down Alt and start painting, and then hold down Shift, or just tap Shift, and you can go through here, and you can actually clean this up a bit and just start painting really quickly. So if you wanted to, you can, again, hold down Alt, start painting, tap Shift, and then you can just inherit that polygroup here. So you can go through here and just start painting these polygroups in. Again, not something I would do at this higher of a resolution, but in a pinch, it might actually help a little bit. And that's just basic ZModeler functionality. All right, I think we're pretty good to go. And we got the inner eyelids as one. Oh, okay, there's where the little stray thing is. So let's invert that. Let's grab this one here, Control W. I think that'll work. Okay, so we got that all set up. I'll go ahead and hit quick save. And let's see. And again, if I miss any questions or comments on here, I apologize. They come in pretty fast and furious. Oh boy. Okay, I think it would be, okay, so the network says, I think it'd be interesting to go over the process of adding scarves or capes in ZBrush. Yeah, we can do that. Let me add that here. Cool. Video mark, yeah, I agree. If you're going to be doing any sort of ZBrush work, if you're constantly like, even if you memorize keys, I do sometimes for like topology brush, I'll go like BTO, and that's my topology brush. But you're right, if you're constantly having to go in here and like get my H polish and get my clay brush and get my standard brush, if you're constantly going in there, like you said, hotkeys really help that. So like clay brush, standard brush, trim dynamic, H polish, clay buildup or clay tubes, Z modeler, pinch brush, standard brush, and a few others I have on there, but I can just cycle through those really quickly, and then you can also throw them down here. For everybody out there who is unawares, go to my YouTube channel and go to the Intro to ZBrush Part 2, and that'll walk you through your custom interface and your hotkeys. And if you want to follow along, you can go to my Gumroad page or my QBrush page, and if you scroll down to the very bottom, there's an Intro to ZBrush files, and it's free, and you can just download this interface here. You can even use my hotkeys if you want to. I'm not saying you should. I mean, make your own stuff that makes sense to you, but just in case. It's all yours. When using ZSphere, what's the projection menu under the Edit Topology menu for? So that's an old, let's talk about that for a minute. So in the old days, what you could do, so here's what you do. You can go to Insert, ZSphere, and this is how I usually, so, whoops. Let's go into transparency mode. Let's hit X to go across X symmetry. We're going to hit E to scale this down. And we just have a Z-sphere buried in his head. So what I'm going to do is go in here to edit topology. I'm going to turn Dynamesh resolution down to 0 and density down to 1. So when I do make my Z-remesh mesh, it'll just be a 1-to-1 is what I'm trying to draw. So what you can do here is you can start retopologizing. And in order to see this a little better, I like to go to Matcap Pearl and then drop that color down. And now we can just start. And I'm not going to do anything special. I'm just going to do a very quick Z-remesh of this area. And we're just going through here and we're drawing topology. Back and forth, here to here to here. And you can see I'm tapping off. You can also control tap or shift tap, I forget which. I'm really bad habit of just tapping off. But they'll both work. Okay, so now when I hit A, we can go into an adaptive skin here, and we have just geometry sitting out there. So if I like what I see, I can go and make an adaptive skin, and then I can insert that adaptive skin. Of course, for everybody else, all of this stuff is taking place when you have a Z-sphere selected. You go down here, and you'll need to be under the topology menu and the adaptive skin menu in order to see all this stuff. So in order to get a projection of the mesh you're remeshing here, what we can do is we can hide that Z-sphere. And we've got our skin Z-sphere showing, or we've got our high-res mesh showing, and then we've got our skin Z-sphere. So all I need to do is go into Subtool, Project All, and we can go Project All, Subdivide, Project All, Subdivide, and Subdivide is just Control-D, Project All, Subdivide. And what we're basically doing is projecting that detail to our retopologized mesh here. So now we have subdivisions as well as detail from our original mesh. In order to not necessarily have to do that, what you can do, and the reason why I like retopologizing in that method is I can have multiple subtools showing. Like if I wanted to retopologize all of this stuff together, all I have to do is turn their visibility on, and then my Z-sphere, if we go back into edit topology and then hit A to go out of adaptive skin mode. If I go back here, all you need to do is just have it turned on and it'll automatically snap to the surface. So if I hit W and move these things, it'll snap to the eyeball now. So that's kind of cool. But an alternative to that, and it's been a long time since I've done it, but what we can do is we can take our Z-sphere here and we can go, I'm just going to go ahead and hit delete topology. I think that's under topology. And an alternative method is you can have a Z-sphere, and under Z-sphere, is it under, rigging, you can select, oh man, it's been a long time. Make it as good. Okay, I think it's under rigging. You can select your mesh, and then you can just select the mesh you want to. And in this case, because you have to select a mesh, you're gonna have to merge all these things together. So if I wanted to select all of these together, what I'd have to do is go down here to subtool. Let me select not a Z-sphere. There we go. Merge visible. And then I'll go ahead and throw out a merged version. And then I can take the Z-sphere here, and then I can go into rigging, select mesh, merged mesh, I think. Delete mesh, bind mesh. Topology, select topology. No, that's not it. And I don't think they would have taken it out, but basically what you would do is you would select your mesh, and then when you retopologize, you can have projection turned on, and as you're building up your topology, you could hit A for an adaptive skin, and it would automatically project that detail to the topology. But as you can see, it's been so long since I've done that. If you go back and watch my Eat 3D videos from 8 years ago, I could walk you through that. I think, well, here's the other thing too, is I should be able to rig this thing. So if I've got that selected, hold on, delete. Now I'm wondering. Let's go out of edit mode here. Let's grab just a fresh Z-sphere here, hit X, go across X symmetry, and then we'll go into projection, topology, rigging, select mesh, and we want to do the merged. There we go. Okay, so maybe it can't be a subtool. So we've got the merged mesh here, and now we can go into edit topology, and with this merged mesh, we can start retopologizing here. I'm just going to do a really quick retopology. Let's see if this will work. So now when I hit A, you're going to see, oh, first of all, we need to go back down here to our adaptive skin, and we see to say Dynamesh off. Density, I'm going to crank that up to like 3. And that's going to give us a 3 subdivision here. So if I hit A, it's going to do that. And then I believe if we go down here and turn on projection, as we're subdividing up, it'll automatically project down when we hit A. So we change that density to like 5 and project. You'll see it's projecting back down to our mesh. So maybe that's useful to you, maybe it's not, but that would be what the project is doing. Whew. Okay. John, you asked, in your experience, have you ever seen a decimated model make it to final game, or is it always a tune cleaned up? If it's not animated and has a silhouette, is it triangulated anyway? Why not? We decimate stuff all the time and put it in game. It's called environment work. And even, I could make the argument that 90% of animatable meshes could also be decimated. You're really, you have to weigh fidelity versus time, cost versus benefit when you go and you do that kind of stuff. Am I shaking the? Am I shaking it too much? You know what I might need to do is stabilize something, because I have these monitors on a very tall arms, and they get a little bit wiggly sometimes. Is this technique of using polygroups instead of guides applicable to hard surfaces to get clean edges and stuff and trying to avoid manual retopologize at all costs? Yeah, and if you so I'm doing some Houdini stuff to alleviate that, but also if you go back here to Instalod, we basically go through here and we take our high res here and we have it do our remesh for us and give us an automatic game res with automatic UVs that we take into Painter and then paint up. So I'd say we're getting close between Instalot and Houdini and a couple other programs of removing the need to really have to hand do topology and UVs. Really close. But having said that, for sure you could do that. So basically, if I go out of edit mode here, let's go ahead and we'll just do a delete all. So basically, if we grab a cylinder here, and this is going to be a very simplified example, but I think you'll get the point. So we're going to say make polymesh 3D, and then again increase this thing, and apply those subdivisions, and we'll go ahead and let's go ahead and we'll dynamesh this thing, and we'll go ahead and take a cylinder here, and we'll hold down Alt, and we'll dynamesh those together. So actually, before I do that, let's isolate this one off. We're going to go ahead and split hidden. And we'll drop this below, and because those are flipped, I gotta go, flip those back. And now we can go over here to, under your polygroup menu, you can go group by normals, and that'll just give me a top and side polygroup here. So now I can make that subtractive, merge this down, do that. Now I have a, you bastard. Okay, so if you're not gonna play nice, I'm gonna go ahead and split hidden. I'm going to do a quick group by normals, and then instead of doing a subtractive mesh, what I'm going to do is do a live Boolean mesh. There we go. And now we can make our Boolean mesh here. So now we've got a mesh here, and it's just got crazy geometry. In fact, it could just be dynamesh geometry, but at least you have polygroups on here. So the first thing you're going to want to do is clean up these edges. So I can run a macro here, but also you'd probably want a polygroup for the top and sides here. I forgot about that. Polygroup where you can, because of course you want to control that, obviously. So let's turn off live Boolean here. Let's go ahead. Let's see if we can do a group by normals on this thing. Yeah, that'll work. And then we'll take this one here. And again, we'll drop another cylinder on here. Split mass points. And just for fun, we'll go ahead and crease this one. And then we'll go ahead and group by normals. And then push those down. And then live Boolean it. And then we'll go ahead and make our Boolean mesh here. Okay, so we got polygroups all over the place to control our edge loops here. And like I said before, you could even dynamesh this thing, and you're off to the races. In order to smooth these polygroup borders, what you can do is you can run a macro to do that, polish polygroup borders, or you can go through here manually, and you're going to go down here. Let's turn off line. Go to masking, and you can mask by groups, and that'll go ahead and mask your group lines here. And then if you invert that mask, or you can grow that mask one, invert that mask, and then you can do like a deformation polish by features open circle, and that'll go ahead and polish your groups here. You can also, when you go in here to your, what am I looking for, geometry ZRemesh, you can say, okay, I'm going to keep my groups, and by when you turn on keep your groups, your smooth groups is going to be on. If you're doing something really hard surface with hard angles, like not round surfaces, but like rectangular surfaces, you're probably going to keep smooth groups at 0. In this case, it wouldn't really hurt to have smooth groups on, I don't think. It should do fine, but just something to keep in mind. And then for this one, we can say, if you wanted to build in edge loops around where the surfaces change like this, you can do that, but I'm going to turn that down just a little bit. You can also turn it down to 0 if you don't want it to put extra edges where the surface changes are at all. I'll turn it down and see how that works. And then for the target polygon count as 5 is probably fine to start with. And we probably, if we want to project back any detail, we'll want to duplicate this off. So we'll go into solo mode here, hit ZRemesh. And now it will rebuild this weirdo surface. And you don't have to start with, this could be done with CAD data, just polygrouping by normals and then cleaning up your polygroups like that. And that'll be fine as well. And now when it ZRemeshes, it'll take that into consideration, your edges here, and then you can just go half and just keep hitting ZRemesh, and as long as you have keep groups turned on, it'll go ahead and do that. Now, we are running into some problems here, and you can alleviate some of this by going to Insert Single Edge Loop. And sometimes if your edges are really straight, and just hold down Alt, you can go into geometry, edge loops, and delete loops, but I don't think that would work on this one in particular. And if you wanted to like recap this one, you can hold down Control Shift, isolate it, invert that, delete hidden, hover over an edge with your Z modeler brush, close convex hole, and then you can just close this one off, hit Control W. And then even in here, you can go in here to insert single edge loop, and you can knock some of this stuff down. So your mileage may vary as to how useful this is or isn't, but for what it's worth, and we can go and recap this one too as well. Let's delete hidden here, and then we'll go to close convex hole. And just to make sure we have our original here, you can do a quick project all, and that'll go ahead and snap those vertices to the original mesh. And now you have this thing. Again, you could just, this is a simple enough shape where you could have just Z-modeler it, Z-modeler, but on a more complex shape, this might make more sense. So, I don't know. Up to you. Some options at least. How can I scale the sculpted object in millimeters or centimeters? So you can go over here to Z plugin, and you can go to Scale Master, and you can knock yourself out with millimeters and centimeters all day. Cool. My life is good. Thanks for asking, Craig. Thanks for showing up, Joseph B. I'm just getting caught up here. Thank you, Ven City, for the kind words. Michael, do you do any environmental sculpting at all? No, yeah. Environment sculpting isn't a whole lot different than just sculpting people. Let me put that on my streaming topics. We can do some of that. And what I like about environmental sculpting is that I have to kind of flex my brain in different areas, so I know techniques and tools to use for a lot of character and armor and hard surface and vehicles and weapons, but when it comes to environments or naturalistic environments, I have to go to not a completely different set. I use a lot of the same tools as well, but it's interesting coming up with different solutions. So I'm not really good at it as far as like thinking through problems necessarily, because I haven't built up that mileage of creating a bunch of environments, but that's probably something I should be doing more often. Yeah, and the scarf thing, I'm probably going to be doing a Marvelous Designer, so that's why I'm holding off on that for just a little bit. How to sculpt with alpha seamlessly, like skin texturing with the freehand brush. What I would do is under your Z plugin, go to, oh, you probably don't have this installed by default, but do we have it installed? Nanotile textures here. So go to your internets and go to ZBrush plugins, and then Download Center, and then scroll to the very bottom, and you're going to see employee created ones, and in here is Joseph Drust's nanotile textures. And if you go through here, he doesn't have the, and some of the newer ones here, for example, ZBrush Photoshop, they got these little buttons on top that'll walk you through how to use it and like a video to go to. I don't see that on here. You could just Google it. I'm sure he has a walkthrough. I have one as well. If you go over here to this nanotile section on my YouTube channel, we basically nanotile seeds, but this is just for nanotiling the mesh. You do have an option in here for basically what it's doing is doing a wrap. So just really quickly, manually, this is going to be a very truncated version of that, but you can use that nanotile mesh to also do something like, for instance, make polymesh 3D. So when we hit X symmetry, we can sculpt across X, go across X symmetry. And actually, before you subdivide, you probably want to turn smooth modifier off so you don't get those curved edges. So we can sculpt across here. You can also go to your brush settings. Oh boy, let's see if I remember where this is. This is another one of those environment things. I don't really do that much. The environment people are constantly doing tiling stuff. So we go over here to wrap mode and we turn that to 1. If you hold down control, you'll see what the values of wrap mode are doing. But if we change that to 1 and we turn off X, you can see as I start approaching this side, let's turn off L, it'll start sculpting on the other side. So that'll give you, and then we start sculpting up here, it'll sculpt down to the bottom. Yoink. So as you're sculpting, it'll go ahead and wrap to each side of your mesh. Now you're probably going to want padding in here. It goes into a whole big thing. The nano tile textures will go ahead and do padding. But the cool thing is what you can do. Let's go ahead and go to Documents. Turn off W size. W, that doesn't matter. Let's go to a 1024 by 1024. Turn off Pro. Duh. Hit resize. And I'm going to do a quick save real quick. And I'm going to hit Control N. Didn't realize we had that much stuff saved. There we go. Go to Venom, okay, Control N. Did it even do it? Hold on. So I'm going to go into Document here, and what you can do is you can zoom out of your document, and we can't really see that well, but I think let's change that background color temporarily. Okay, so again, Document, turn off Pro. Let's do 1024 by 1024. Hit Enter. Hit Resize. Do you want to resize this document? Yes. And now again, go over here to zoom, and now you can zoom out and see the whole document. So we can take, and now we don't need to have this. There we go. So now what we can do is take, you know what, let's make that background a little darker so we can see it. So we can take our tiling, our beautiful tiling sculpt here, and then we can hit F to frame, and then we can go, for example, alpha, grab dock, and now we have this mesh here. And you can also, if you go out of edit mode and then you hit the tilde key and you drag, you can see you can drag through your texture, and you can see it's completely tiled. So if you want to drag to another area, you can do that, and then do another alpha grab dock that'll just grab your height here. So now that you get all that, you can hit Control N to clear your canvas, and then we can go back here to Document, W size, new, and then we can take anything that has UVs. Do spheres have UVs in ZBrush? I don't remember, but I do know that planes do. So we'll take our plane 3D here, go into edit mode, make polymesh 3D, and then we can go down here to, well, first we have to grab our alpha, alpha, export. We'll just throw that onto our desktop as tiling, and then we can go over here to surface, noise, turn it on, and we're not going to use the default noise, which is basically like a rocky thing here. So we can crank that noise. So here you can go in here, you can play around with these curves and get some cool rock effects. What we're going to do is go into our alpha here, grab our tiling alpha, and then crank that strength up a little bit, and also mix basic noise down to 0. And now you can see we're taking our tiling height alpha here. If we scale this, that's noise scale, alpha scale. So if we go ahead and scale this down, you're going to see we just have our alpha height map tiling. So now we can hit OK, and there you go, perfectly tiling with wrap mode only. Like I said before, there's caveats, and you want padding sometimes. Nano tiling will do all that for you, but in a pinch, you can just do that. What I have a standing setup. That's just so because I sit on my butt all day, so it's sometimes nice to stand up for a minute, and I don't mind standing up in the morning for a couple hours. Are you planning to stream some Houdini stuff? I'm very interested in 16.5 from your perspective. I'm going through now and making notes and doing some investigation, so I'm just going to be making videos probably so I can edit it to make myself seem smarter than I really am. And once I'm more comfortable in it, then I'll be able to do some Houdini stuff live. Right now, you guys probably wouldn't want to see me do Houdini stuff live. Cool. Where do I start to learn 3D? If you want to start with my channel, you can, and I would start with like the Intro to ZBrush series. It's not traditional 3D like Maya and stuff. I don't think I have any. I have Intro to ZBrush, Substance Painter, Substance Designer, Quick Start, Fusion 360 Quick Start if you want to start with there. I use Maya and a lot of other programs. Maya is probably my main production pipeline program, but I don't have anything on that on my channel necessarily as like learning it. Maybe that's something I should do. Although I kind of want to learn Blender, just because I don't want to pay $880 a month for Maya for just basic stuff. So yeah, Nanotile is really cool for doing a lot of cool stuff here. So let's okay, now I'm going to do a scarf here. Let's see. U-mesh, subtool. Let's make sure I got this guy all set up to where we want to start, because I'm going to redo him, turn off our line. Okay, so this is our polygroup guy, and we can turn him all back on, and we'll go ahead and save him as old streaming man. We'll just call him Chops McGee. Polygroups. For capes and scarves, probably what I would do, we can probably put a scarf on this guy, and we could put a cape on this guy. So I guess I could use this guy. If you wanted to do full body, we could do that as well. Let's do that. Let's bring up another old thing we haven't touched in a long time, this military mail. That's another thing we started and didn't go anywhere with. You know how it goes. So hit F to frame, turn off solo mode. So, oh yeah, here's an old, so we were kind of doing an ammo pack here. Go to subtool and turn everything back on. There we go. We got this guy blocked out, and I think I've got a naked man ready to go. So if I hit Control W, we'll make this all one polygroup here. And I'm going to clone him off. And I'm going to go to, when I go into Marvelous Designer, Z plugin, and let me scoot this up here. Decimation Master, preprocess current. And we're just going to knock him down. We don't need to take 731,000 polygons into Marvelous Designer. We can take like 80 in there and it'll be fine. Speaking of all of what I'm about to do, you can see if you go to my YouTube channel, which I keep spamming you guys with, you can go to Marvelous and ZBrush Quick Start, and that'll take you through even more stuff. But for now, what I would do is take this guy, and we'll take his decimation down to like, let's say 88. Hit enter, hit decimate current, and you can see you don't really see anything happen, but when you turn polyframe on, these are a lot fewer polygons. So, and you know what, I'm just going to do a quick mirror and weld. And we'll go ahead and export this onto my desktop as body. You could also, interestingly enough, this is one of the topics we talked about. If you had, say, knee pads, so I'm going to take these knee pads here. I'm going to hold down Shift and bent up arrow and shoot all these to the top here. And I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to turn on dynamic for these things, and then turn on crease, and then apply. I'm going to merge all this down. Hit Control W, and then I'm going to do auto groups, and then I'm going to do a mirror and weld, and then I'm going to take his body here, and we're going to go to append his knee pads here. So we can bring this all in as one avatar. So if I wanted to put pants underneath these knee pads, what I could do is I could do one version. Let's go ahead and group both of these together, and then group both of these together. So what I could do for one version is move. So if I have W selected, I can hold down, oops. Let's not have Dynamesh on. I can hit W, I can control tap this one, and I can move it out. But first what we're going to do is, yeah, it's a lot of polygons to bring in there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and decimate these. Give me a second. Pre-process these down to like 30K. That'll work. And then again, of course, we'll do another auto groups, and then of course another, let's turn off LSIM for that mirror and weld. That's always a little bit safer to do. You want to do it across the world axis. So anyways, group these together. And we'll call this one, we'll go ahead and merge our guy down. So this will be all one avatar. I'll hit Control W, and we'll go export, and we'll save this as body. You know what? Let's save this as avatar close. I'll undo that, and we'll move these apart. Again, you don't even have to do that. You can hit W and then hold down Control and tap, and then we'll move these away. And we'll export this as avatar far. So what you should be able to do is do a morph between those two different avatars, and when you have a claw sim in here, it'll take these things and bring it into your mesh. I get varying results with it. Doesn't really work that well, but just because we're talking about it, I can go ahead and bring it up. The other thing I need to be doing is launching Marvelous Designer. And it's like, well, why wouldn't you use ZBrush to sculpt a cape? And I guess I would use it to sculpt a cape. I don't know that I would use it to do a scarf, or you can do a shirt in ZBrush as well. It's just easier. I'm not a huge cloth sculpting fan. There we go. So I'm going to go to File, Import, OBJ, and we're going to do Avatar Far. Load as Avatar, auto scale's fine. There we go. So we've got our avatar in here. We can double click him and make him a little darker so his cloth shows up a little bit better. And we can go ahead and make a quick pair of pants, I suppose. So, I mean, for a cape, I'm just going to make a shape like this. And you know what? Let's do a half of that. So I'm going to do this shape here, and then I'm going to go through here. It's been a while since I've been in here. I was in here for a minute for CG Master Academy. So we'll put a point in here, but it has been a while. So if I go back here and we hold down Shift, we can make a little addendum here. Maybe not. Oh, you know what? Let me think. Let's put in another point here, and then I'll hit Z. Takes me a little bit to get acclimated, and then what we can do is we can convert this point here. We have Z selected. Convert to curve point, and now you can go through here with these curve tools and kind of make it look like that. So when it comes over his shoulder, we can pin it, and that'll be half of our cape here. Now, if we are going to move this around to the back, you're going to see it's darker on the back side here, so I'm going to go ahead and flip this one horizontally, and we can go ahead and move this over. And then I can take this one here, we'll hit A, and then we're going to symmetric pattern this one. And we can temporarily, we can seam this up later, but just for now what I'm going to do is sew those up, and now we've got a cape. Now if I hit spacebar, it's going to start simming, and it's going to start dropping. So what I'm going to need to do is, I think if I hold down W and move, it'll go ahead and pin, but I'm also going to just go into move mode, and we'll grab both of these, and I can move these around. Let's undo that so we get rid of that pinning here. I'm going to go to the side, and let's change our gizmo a little bit here. Settings, preferences, gizmo, world coordinate. There we go. And now I can just move this and rotate this around. And out. What I'm really looking for is just where his shoulders are going to attach here. Come on, Marvelous Designer, work with me. There we go. Okay, so now that I have this out, I can hit sim, and it'll go ahead and start simming on him, and then I can go through here, and you can pin through here. I'm just going to hit W and just do a quick pin to his body. You can also pin, if we undo that, we can pin to his avatar here as well, so we can edit, we can tack on avatar. So you can click like here to here, and then here to here, and then here, whoops, here to here, and then here to here. And now when I hit spacebar, it'll go ahead and fall down. So now he's got a cape on him, and it's a pretty long cape, and this will continue to sim as I move these things in. For the scarf here, that would just be, and you know what, because we were talking about it, let's go ahead and do pants. So what I'm going to do is do this one and this one, and move this over, and we'll do a quick, oh boy, here, down his leg, and then we'll come up, and then in. That'll work. I'll go into Z, move this out, and move this down. And I'm going to click this one, curve point, and then edit this curve a little bit. And that'll be one side of our pants here. And I think this will be fine. And again, this is just super duper simple. We'll go back into A here, and we'll go ahead and clone symmetric pattern. So this will be the other side of our pants here. And we need to sew this thing up. So I'm going to go, well, we need to do the back sides first. So let's go ahead and hit Control Copy, Control Paste, and this will be the back side of our pants. I'm going to go ahead and move these over just a little bit as well. We don't need to see the cape there. And then for this one, again, we're going to do a clone symmetric pattern. This will be the back side of our pants here. And I'm going to go ahead, go back to selection here. We're going to take these and we're going to say hide 3D pattern. So I'm going to take these two and we're going to move it around to the back. And again, we got to flip these horizontally, move them in. And now we're going to have a pair of pants. These are probably going to be some tight pants, but we can modify these as we need to. So what we're going to do is go back to sewing here, and we're going to sew up his butt, and we're going to sew up his front, and we're going to need to sew this side where that blue dot is to that side, which means on this side here where that blue dot is, we need to assign it to that side, and we'll just sew those up. And for the interior of the legs, this interior to that interior, and then this interior to that interior. So now that we got these, we can check our sewing. We can hit spacebar, and that'll go ahead and give them a little pair of pants. So you can modify these pants however you want. If you want to, you know, make them longer, make them shorter, whatever you want to do. And you can also loosen them up by you can go in here and just scale them up if you'd like. And you can also go through here. Let me think. It would be shrinkage, weft, and warp. You can knock that up to like, I don't know, 5. Maybe. And that'll kind of loosen up his pants a little bit. You can go through here and modify these however you want. So now that you have this, if you had really loose pants or something, you could go through here with your avatar and go ahead and change that. So let's see if we go through here and we're going to go show all 3D patterns. So you got all these showing, right? So now if I go through here, let's go ahead and file. So if I go to file, import as OBJ, and this OBJ I want to do avatar close. And we're going to load this not as an avatar, but load as a morph target. And it's going to go over 30 frames. So when I hit OK, that'll go ahead and see how it's slowly moving those into place and then clamping onto the cloth. And then this one also got left alone here, so we go ahead and pull this out. There we go. And I guess it's hitting his calves there. So that'll go ahead and squeeze in your meshes here. Now you can see it's a little bit ratty in here, so you would need to kind of maybe mush this around. I don't think the layer system would work all that great for these particular things. Let's see if we can do that real quick. Layer 1. Yes, I know. Because I think that's just putting patterns on top of each other, so I don't know that, yeah, see how the cloth is doing some weird stuff. So yeah, let's put that back to layer 0. Move this back out. So yeah, it doesn't work for the avatar. So basically what I would do in this situation is instead of, you know, clamping this down, which could work in some situations if we could kind of move it in from the side a little bit better, go through here and paint in or put in a, let's see, let's grab our chalk here. Line 3D pattern. Is that the chalk? I guess. So if I wanted to, say, put in a strap here on his leg, interesting. But what I was really looking for the texture, and you can see I haven't gone over the new stuff. I guess line is what we're looking at. Okay, no biggie. So I'm going to take his cape and hide it again. So we're going to hide 3D pattern here. Oops. Hide 3D pattern. So if I wanted to put on a line here, I'm just going to use these as guides so I can cut an internal line over here. So let's see, internal rectangle, internal polygon line. So I'm just going to follow this line that I have. Double click that. And then on this one here, it's going to go ahead and do it symmetrically because I have symmetry turned on. Like so. And you could convert these to internal patterns or whatever you want to do. For the edit line, I wonder if I can just, let's see if we can delete all lines. I'll have to look that up. There we go. So we have our internal lines sewn on here. And again, you can turn these into curves or whatever you want to do. But basically what I'm looking for here is for all of these lines, let's go hit Z. I'm going to go over here and we're going to turn on elastic and we're going to drop that ratio down. And then we're going to hit sim. And that'll go ahead and make these internal lines elastic so it'll kind of pull inwards. It didn't pick the best place to do it, but that's what it's doing. So you could do that here, and that'll just go ahead and cinch it in, and then in your ZBrush file, you can go ahead and make that whatever you want. So now that we have that, and let's go ahead and show all 3D patterns here. If you wanted to do a scarf, it'd be very similar. I would just take something like this, and we would rotate this around here. And again, we could go ahead, we could hit, if you start simming, and then you could go through here and we could just pin this. Instead of tacking it to our avatar, we can go in here to pin box. And I'm just going to go back here and we're just going to say pin all of these guys here. And now when I sim this thing, it'll go ahead and pin to him. And I'm going to go ahead and pin this stuff right here too as well. And then we'll go ahead and sim it. And I can go ahead and take this and we can wrap it around. Again, if you want to freeze some of those other cloths that are kind of dancing around, you can do that, or you can hide them completely. And then you could pin this back if you wanted to as well. Now tying this in a knot, I'm sure with some fancy footwork you could do that as well. You could also like bring in an avatar of a table if you wanted to fold something, or you can just drop it down to the ground and fold it on the ground. There's a lot of different ways you can use avatars in order to and you can also use folding. You can put in internal lines and you can fold along those internal lines, and then you can delete those internal lines. It's kind of up to you. So let's see if we can get this thing to flip around and stay there. Okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take this one here. I'll pull it around. You can also up the friction coefficient on your avatar, and that'll make your avatar stickier. And also, if you want, you can hit spacebar to pause this, and you can go in here to Z, And you can grab this line here and we can extend it a little bit more. And that'll give you a little bit more cloth here to deal with here. So we've got our scarf on here. I'm going to go ahead and where's our pin? And we'll go ahead and go back here to okay, our tacks are still there. Okay, so we didn't delete our tacks. Good. We just deleted our pins. So we've got our scarf on here. We've got our cape. Now you can choose different material properties here. So if we want his pants, for example, to be, here's his pants. It's like, okay, we got a default fabric. I'm going to add another fabric here, and we'll call this pants. So we can just drag this pants onto our, I think our selection here should, there we go. So now we have pants, and these pants, we can change the color if we want to. And we can go over here to our preset, and we can drop that down. You don't get to see this. It's going off the side of the screen, but you can see the presets in here. And we'll say that's lightweight nylon. And for the other default fabric, like the cape and the scarf here, that's going to be under default, and we can choose anything we want. Cotton jersey will be fine. So the other thing you're going to want to do is, as we're simulating this, you're going to see it's not super detailed. So what you can do is select all of these things, and you can go over here and change your particle distance down from like 20 to, say, you can drop it all the way down to 1 if you want to, but I don't need that much resolution for a demo. So we'll raise that resolution a little bit, and now you can see as we simulate this, it's going to be a lot higher resolution on your object here. So we've got our, looks kind of like a vagrant superhero. So now we can go to File. Well, let's go ahead and stop the simulation. File, Export, OBJ, and we'll call this Clothing. Sure. And we'll hop back over to ZBrush. Load, not load tool. Import, Clothing. There we go. We can take him out of there. Control-Shift-A, split hidden, and now you've got all this clothing on him that you can go through, and you can zero mesh the stuff if you want. We can take his cape here, and we'll go ahead and split this off. So if you wanted to give this cape some thickness, you could do that. You basically, I mean, we've done that before on our channel a bunch of times. If you go to Michael Pavlovich, live stream highlights, and you scroll down here, I think there's one called like Simple Pants, Simple Shirt, and also on the Marvelous Designer thing, I go over it as well. It's basically just doing a lot of Z-modeler and projection and stuff like that. Where's that at? Marvelous Designer, here we go. You can go through here and Z-project and Z-remesh. There you go. So you can take these pants and make them into one solid object. Cool. Lewis says, go look on Blender Guru if you just want to get started in interface of Blender. Yeah, I need to, that's just something I need to sit down and do. Why to use a VDM instead of an insert mesh? What's the difference? Well, the bigger difference is it's an alpha that you can do a subtract. So let's wait for this to save here. So for instance, if we grab a sphere, edit, make polymesh 3D here, and you go through here and you hit Control D a couple times, and we can go in here, hit B, chisel 3D, hit M, and so we've got a mouth on here. And so these are vector displacement. Speaking of Houdini, if you go back to my channel here, you're going to have a, let's link you guys to this. You'll have a Houdini and ZBrush section, and we use some Houdini tools to do vector displacements in Houdini. So you can take an arbitrary mesh and just vector displace that to a plane. So we take a ZBrush head, then we create a vector displacement in Houdini. so we don't have to use our projection tools, and then we could just have a head here. So that's kind of neat. Another thing you can do is, so you can basically drag this out, and once you've made your vector displacement, you can go through here. So basically it's like, well, why wouldn't I just use an insert mesh brush, which for some of these is a valid point. Like for this one here, you could do an insert mesh brush that had a ball and this thing, and then you could just dynamesh it together. However, where it gets a little bit more difficult is you would have to do 2 insert mesh brushes and dynamesh together, a negative insert mesh brush to get all this detail, or 2 live booleans, because you could do a subtractive boolean and then an additive boolean. So you'd basically have to do a subtractive boolean for the inside of the mouth and then an additive boolean for the lips, because if you took these lips here and you just made a subtractive boolean, it would just leave a hole and subtract these lips out. So if you want something that goes positive and negative, these are far more efficient, far more effective than just doing an insert brush. Now in this case, this one you could just do an insert mesh brush. It's just a piece that's just going to deform your mesh out. Possibly the same thing for the nose, but really for vector displacement, it's just kind of an interesting thing that you can do. And in the case of the mouth and some of these ears, if the ears had really deep ear holes, that would be a very complex Boolean or insert mesh brush. Same thing for this one. You could do an insert mesh brush of this one, but it could be additive and you wouldn't get that deep hole in there. Or you could do a subtractive mesh, but you wouldn't get all this stuff. So you'd have to do 2 operations as opposed to just dragging this out and just doing 1. But like this one, yeah, that could just be an insert mesh brush. But for a vector displacement, it's a little bit faster to just kind of do this, right? It's like, okay, I'm done. As opposed to insert mesh, dynamesh, smooth, whatever you need to do. So again, just more tools to put in your tool belt. So there's something else I wanted to talk about with vector displacement. I can't remember, but that's the idea. Hey Zion, thanks for showing up. Sorry, it's taken me a while to get through these comments here. How to retopo in Marmoset. In mine, I can only do render. I have no idea. I didn't know I had that. And this is ZBrush. Dana. Yeah, sculpting cloth. If you're talking about Marvelous Designer, this is a Marvelous Designer. And so, like for me to sculpt what was relatively easy, which was just like dragging off, and see how it captures all the muscle detail into there, and it kind of pulls in the back. Oh, whoops! I think we took a piece of that pants here. There we go. Split this off, and then under subtool here, we can go ahead and merge this down, and we can take his pants here. Control Shift A. And so where this stuff interpenetrated to some really ugly things to your cloth. So again, not ideal. Put a scarf here. Go ahead and split this off. And then for his cape here, you can subdivide this thing. You're probably going to want to weld it first. So underneath your geometry modified topology, you can weld. Then you go through here and you can smooth this out, or you can start sculpting, or you can zero mesh it and project that detail back, and you can give it thickness as well. We can just turn on double for now. But you can see, for me to sculpt this, this particular instance wouldn't be terribly difficult, but it's just a lot easier to drag out a rectangle, pin it, hit sim, give it what material properties you want. That's the other thing too. If you want to try a denim cape versus a silk cape versus a light nylon cape, and see what different kind of wrinkles it gives you, that's just a button press, wait 15 seconds and export, as opposed to let me meticulously sculpt this thing for hours for those different effects and see which one works better. Let's see. Zion says, I have a problem when I pass an OBJ to ZBrush, and when I ZRemesh creates its own polygroups, and then unweld the cuts with my different polygroups. I still don't know why. Go into geometry, modify topology, and weld these points, and also crank that weld distance up if you need to. If you're bringing in OBJs that are dirty or they're not welded for some reason, it'll do maybe it'll probably do an auto groups. So where if if we go back here, let's see, we grab this cape. Let me go ahead and split this off. And if I do an auto, see, it looks like it's all one mesh, right? But if I go over here and I do an auto groups, you're going to see, oh, I have two separate groups because this thing the points line up, but it isn't welded. So when you zero mesh this thing, it's going to zero mesh these as two separate objects, even if it looks like one object here. So again, just go over here and weld your points, and then you're good to go. Cool, cool. Oh, that's a good point. So the network, also on my channel. So we have the Intro to ZBrush Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, and you're also going to have the ZBrush 4R8, What's New. So the Intro to ZBrush, I haven't gone through and re-recorded everything because it's not really worth it. The only thing you'd really need to know for the Intro to ZBrush series is these Gizmo, the first 4 videos in here, to learn how to use the Gizmo, and the rest of it's just kind of icing on the cake. But there's 61 videos of What's New in ZBrush 4R8 that you can also hit up separately from those intro series. Again, I'm just scrolling really quickly. If I missed something, I apologize. Juan, I was wondering if you knew which would be better, either CGMA courses or the Game Art Institute bootcamp. I only know what I've never actually done either, so I can't say from experience. I teach on CG Master Academy, my little class, but that's all I know. So I wouldn't be much use for you there. Cha Machine says, press W while moving in real time to freeze the pinch point. It's easier to place a scarf. That's true. So when you hold down W and then you move, that's what's going to do that whole, it'll pin as you're simming. So you can go here and sim, and let's go ahead and undo that. So you're simming, and then you can hit W. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. Oh, I forgot also let's do this. Let's do a blowing, if I can remember how to do it. I'm going to take this particle distance, and we're going to put this back up to 20. There we go. And I'm going to do high 30 pattern. No. This one, this one, this one. And this one, and this one. High 30 pattern. So we've got our cape in here, and I'm going to delete all pins. And then on here, oh boy, if I double click out here in our, let me see if I go to simulation properties. Give me a second. I have this somewhere. It's been a while. This is called Marvelous Designer. Not window. Okay, right-click in 3D window and choose Simulation Properties, set gravity to 0. Okay, that's another thing we can do. So we can go through here, and we can set this gravity to 0 instead of gravity. And when we do that, see how it'll kind of just keep floating off into space here? So that's one way you could do this. Let's go back to our simulation properties, and we'll put that gravity back down to, what was it, negative 9800 or something like that. And then we'll go ahead and resim this. And now it should fall back down to Earth. Like so. So that's one thing you can do. display, show wind controller. So we've got a wind controller here, so we can click this thing here, and I think if the wind's blowing this way, that's fine. And then you can activate it on, and then when you're simulating, it'll start blowing your cape. Okay, it blows in the direction of this thing here. So we can go through here, we can change that strength up to like 4,000. Ooh, so dramatic. Ooh, okay, that's quite a wind. Let's drop that down to like 2,000. So we want something a little bit more dramatic here. Whoa. Did we also change the, let's go back to our simulation properties here. Okay. Is it blowing in that direction? Let's go ahead and get this off of him just a little bit here. Get off of his finger. There we go. Okay, so we got wind properties in here, and it's simulating wind. And then you could use gravity. You could just go through here and push and pull. You could drop your particle distance down to get a little bit more interactivity with it. But once you get it to where you like it, you can go ahead and just pause the simulation, and then you can export this as a blowing cape, for example. So there's all that. Decay sets up puffs of air. Let's try that. So we go back here and we say the decay. Yeah, 0 is just a constant wind. So let's do puffs of wind at maybe, I don't even know what the setting is supposed to be, like what a good number is. So that'll just kind of puff wind at him. So it won't just be a constant. There we go. That's a little bit better. Very dramatic. So whoops, hold on, let me back up a little bit here. Oh boy. Okay, again, I'm just scrolling really quick through here. Danny asked, do you have an Intuos Pro 2017? Do your nibs wear so quickly, like in a week or so? I don't have, it's not a newer Intuos. This is actually a pretty old one. Model PTH651. My nib is actually, I mean, it's getting a little bit sharp on one side, but this one's lasted a long time. Peter Robbie Creative says, Michael is pimping the YouTube channel pretty hard today. That's just because when you guys ask questions, that's where all the answers are. It's easier for me to go through here and be like, well, let me demo something I've done 500 times. It's all right here. Everything you need to know. Can't remember, is there a place where you can see where all your hotkeys are assigned to? My Damien standard was assigned to an Alt-D hotkey, but it's assigned to something else new now. Yeah, go to your computer here. And let's go to ZBrush data. See users public documents, ZBrush data. And then your Z startup hotkeys file. And brush Z model, you can see my standard brush is set to Alt S, which should be somewhere in here, but this is where your hotkey should be, I believe, if I remember correctly. How does vector displacement affect topology polygroups? It just pulls through it. So we go back to our vector displacement here. It just takes your topology and just deforms it. So not super clean, but again, you can always Z-remesh it and project all, or retopologize and project all, or dynamesh it. What are you making in ZBrush most of the time? Usually character stuff. Our weapons, vehicles, characters is what I usually do, but we'll probably do a little bit of environment stuff as we move forward. How do you deal with thickness on clothing in general? Do you extrude the whole piece of clothing and then UV it, or how would you approach it? I guess I can do the cape really quickly, but if you want to watch that whole process, go to my Marvelous Designer ZBrush, and we talk a little bit about that. But just a quick version of that, we can say, okay, I want to give this cape some thickness. So what I can do is I can duplicate this cape off, and we're going to go to our zero mesher. First, I want to make sure these, again, we were talking about this earlier, I want to make sure these points are welded. So I'm going to go to Geometry, Modify Topology. There it is, weld points. And now I can go through here and use zero mesh. We're going to do, how many let's just do half, adapt the size down a bit. We don't have any groups, so we'll just hit zero mesher. And if it was symmetrical, we could turn X on, but you can see it's not symmetrical. Clothing from Marvelous Designer usually isn't. You could force it to be symmetrical, but in this case, I don't really need to do that. And I'm just going to hit half and zero mesh again. Just trying to get it down to a poly count that I want. There you go. I think that'll work. So then if you wanted to, you could go through here, and instead of doing a Q mesh, I'm just going to do an extrude polygroup all. You might need to go in here and clean up some of this stuff in here. Like, this is kind of freaking it out a little bit. You can manually go through here and help hold on. Do we turn on some settings here? Auto masking. Mask my polygroups down to 0. So you can go through here and you can manually help. Looks like for some reason ZBrush really wanted to do something weird over here. So we're going to go to collapse edge, and we can collapse these edges in. That'll help. So any sort of weird stuff you can help zero mesher out, and then we can do another half. Much better. So now what we're going to do is not do a Q mesh, we'll do an extrude polygroup all, or all polygons here, and we'll go ahead and give this some thickness here, and then we'll go ahead and do display properties flip. That's way down here at the bottom here, display properties, and you can flip those. So now we have these, and we got to get our detail back. The detail on the inside you're not going to be able to snap to necessarily. Here's the other thing too, you could do thickness in Marvelous Designer. You can export thick geometry. I like to control my thickness in ZBrush a little bit more, but I forgot to mention that you can add thickness to Marvelous Designer cloth. But in a pinch, or if you're just doing pants, what you can do is we're going to go ahead and do a crease here and then a crease polygroup. So as I subdivide this, you can see if I turn off solo, we're going to have our original cape showing and our other cape here. So I'm going to hit Control D, and then we're going to isolate this top part. We're going to hit Project All, bring everything else back, Control D, Project All, bring everything else back, Control D, Project All, bring everything else back, Control D, and Project All. So what I'm basically doing is projecting my detail back to my cape here, and it's got thickness. And I also have subdivision history. So if I wanted to go back down here and make major changes, I can do that, and then I can go back up here and get all my detail back. Cool. Yeah, I've had this Intuos forever. In fact, in my entire career, I've only had 3 Intuos tablets. My first one in college was Intuos 1 with a serial port. That one lasted me until well into my professional career, and then they stopped putting serial ports on computers. And then I had another Intuos in the middle that didn't quite last as long as I was expecting, and then this Intuos Pro I've had for a while, at least 3 or 4 years. Cool. Scrolling through. Which to learn first, do you think? Hard surface or organic modeling? You can learn them both. Like Blinn DN 3SS says, organic gives you some more freedom. In my Intro to ZBrush series, we do start with organic, and it's just basically to get comfortable with sculpting brushes. And this is why you see a lot of aliens and old men on ZBrush, is because you can't lose. You can do whatever you want, and you can make anything you want with organic. It's just ZBrush is really set up. Its base tool set is really set up for just like sculpting crazy alien and old men and wrinkles and really fun organic stuff like that. That's not to say you can't learn hard surface in ZBrush. That's pretty much all I do in ZBrush. I don't do a whole lot of organic sculpting anymore. But I would say if you're just getting comfortable, start with this. Start modeling, just sculpting out a guy. And then once you get that, and in fact, in my Intro to ZBrush part 1 starts with organic sculpting, and then in part 2 we go into making accessories and doing a little bit more hard surface, and then part 3 is like Z modeler and doing a lot more hard surface. In fact, if you go to, I guess we can go to, I think this one go straight to my ArtStation. Yay, okay. My profile here, so if you go to my ArtStation page, this is another resource in here. I have a lot of videos on here. And for example, so if you start to Intro to ZBrush Part 1, this is the end result. You just go through and sculpt a bunch of caricatures, and then we go through and re-render in KeyShot. And we do a little bit of like hard surface previs sculpting. And then in Intro to ZBrush Part 2, this is where we start doing accessories. And this one doesn't really show it off very well. That's just a reptile thing. But Intro to ZBrush Part 3 is where we get into Z modeler and stuff, and we go through. And you know, and this stuff's really fun to do. This is my favorite stuff to do. Probably is the more hard surfacey, plastic and metal and leather type things, and weapons. I don't do the whole lot of that on my channel because I only got a few hours, but is 100 macheted says, hi, is 128 gig of RAM noticeable in ZBrush versus 32 to 64? Is there a diminishing return? Thanks. Where my RAM, I haven't noticed a difference, but I tend to work very optimized in ZBrush. I don't put any single subtool over 4 million. I will do hundreds of 4 million polygon subtools, but just to keep ZBrush snappy, I usually keep each individual subtool under 4 million if I can, or around 4.5 million and below. But I'm sure if you get up into the 60 million range, that RAM's going to come in handy. You won't get as many memory errors, hopefully. But as far as my day-to-day use, not really. That's more for, like if you wanted to do photogrammetry, which I need to do on this channel as well. Anything that's really RAM intensive, it's not just like all I do is ZBrush. All I do is ZBrush on this channel is because it's fast and easy, and if I was to do my real work on here, you guys would get bored immediately, I promise. But this ZBrush allows me to kind of just jump around and do, you know, go from capes and scarves to old men sculpts to retopology, and we can go to make a quick gun or a mech or a belt, and I can do all that really quickly as opposed to other programs where it's like, well, I'm going to make a mech finger, and it's going to take me 3.5 hours, you know what I mean? So that's what I mean by that. There's also a new line of Intuos Pro Tabs just got released, has 8192 pin pressure levels. That's pretty cool too. I think this one maybe has 2048, maybe 4096, but I kind of doubt that. So again, my stuff's a little bit older. Oops, sorry, I wiggled my desk here. Blinn says, PavWork, I'm doing a surfboard. I want to fuse the fins to the board. What's the best workflow? And don't lose hard edges and have happy quads. That would be zero mesh with your groups. So, for example, we're going to make a surfboard here. I think I remember what a surfboard looks like. Something like this. And then if we want to add a fin to that, we could go back in here to, we could do, you know, it might be kind of fun, is we have this here. We're going to, okay, it is polymesh. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this off. I'm going to make this into a shadow box here. And we're going to turn on transparency. And in the shadow box here, I'm going to make a fin. So I'm going to go through here, and from the side, hit Q. I'm going to go through here. I guess I could Google it, but I don't know. That's a fin, right? So that could be our fin, and then we'll go out of shadow box mode here, and we'll hit W, and we'll go ahead and scale this in. So this is our fin. If we want to, we can also go through here, and we can go ahead and Dynamesh this thing. And if I want to keep this hard surface, I can go through here, and we can go ahead and slice this bottom piece here. And what that's going to do, not slice, we want to trim. Control Shift, and we're going to go to trim. Basically, trim's going to slice it and then fill the hole for me. So we've got a polygroup down here and a polygroup on either side. So now what I can do is we can quickly go to Polish by Features, Open Circle, and we can just polish this thing down, although it looks like that top got a little bit janky. So what we can do is we can use our trusty Z modeler brush, start painting, tap Shift, and then we can just add these polygroups. really quickly. You could also do it through a selection if you wanted to. But you can see that was easy enough. Then again, we can go through here. Let's turn off line here. We can go through, and as we're polishing by features, and let's do open circle, you can see that's the kind of look we're getting. So now we have a very nice polished fin here. If you want to, you can go through here. Let's go into here and we'll do maybe a taper. And we kind of taper that top a little bit here with our deformers and then say accept. That's cool. So we've got a fin here and we got our surfboard, and we're going to take this fin and we're going to put it, whoops, right here. I don't know, whatever it's supposed to look like. Again, you can also go through here. You can do like a bend arc, and you can try maybe like making that a little bit different. So we'll say accept that. And deformers are in that Intro to ZBrush 4R8. So we've got these two pieces here, and this is all one polygroup, this is all one polygroup. So when I merge these together or I Boolean them together, what I could do is just turn on live Boolean and say, okay, everything looks fine. And then I'm going to make a Boolean mesh like so. So here's our union mesh. And now that these are all stuck together, because I have polygroups on here, when I go to Z-remesh this thing, as long as I say keep groups, so I'm going to turn smooth groups down a little bit and target polygon count of 5, and this is X symmetrical. Let's go ahead and mirror and weld just to ensure that that is. And then we can Z-remesh this. It should maintain those polygroups around here, so you do have nice happy quads, and also you have a nice hard edge around where those two things intersect. So now when I hit D to go into dynamic subdivisions, you can see as I subdivide, I'm getting a very nice clean result. If you're not a good drawer or an accomplished 2D artist, will Maya be the way to go for hard surface, or ZBrush still doable? I don't think there's a lot of ZBrush hard surface stuff I can do in here that would be a little bit trickier to do in Maya. But I don't think you don't need to be a good drawing artist to be a good ZBrush artist. In fact, quite the opposite. In fact, there's a lot of 3D artists, myself included, who can't draw for shit. But we can certainly sculpt quite good enough in my case. And in other cases, people who sculpt very, very well, but can't draw their way out of a paper bag. How do you get the poly lines off the screen? So when you turn on polyframe, you're going to see there's some options over here. There's line and fill. You can turn the fill off, and that'll get rid of that'll make your polygroups disappear, and you can turn those back on, and then you can turn your line off, and that'll turn your lines off. Hey Mike, what time is your Pixel stream these days? It should just be Tuesdays at the same time. We just recently had one here. If you go to the Pavlovich workshop, we did quite a bit of rendering here on this one here. We went through, this was a fun one. So we've been modeling these little, these fun little Mario things, and then I went through and we did a little bit of like weave and fabric patterns and knit patterns, and then we did some BPR rendering techniques to kind of get those rendered out in Photoshop and stuff, and then we went into KeyShot and we did some different variants in KeyShot to kind of get, toon shaded is fun. And then we talked about the whole mouth thing that we did, and also doing panel loops. So that's another cool thing I can talk about too on this channel. I'm glad I went and watched some stuff I just did. So if I can find where in the hell I put Chops McGee. So what I'm going to do is, this is what I want. I'm going to go ahead and do save as. I think I've already done this, but just to make sure, streaming, old man, Chops McGee, whoops, polygroups. And I'm going to go ahead and just kill ZBrush. You can do a preferences initialize. I guess we don't need marbles anymore. Preferences initialize and restart it, but I figured let's do this real quick. And ZBrush doesn't remember my monitor position here, so we'll have to do a little bit of finagling. Scoop this on into place. There we go. Nice clean ZBrush. Hit comma key to get rid of that. Oh, there's also a Z startup plugin. So if you go to Z plugin, let me go ahead and get rid of this too. Z, I have it installed at work. I don't have it installed here. Just like what we did this morning, if you go here to Z plugins, Pixel Object Download Center, There's a Z startup master in here, and in here you can tell it like, hey, when you start up, don't put the light box up and start with this subtool and start in this orientation, start with the floor on, start with this material. All of that can be saved with Z Startup Master. You can also manually do it, but Z Startup Master is a nice little plugin to have. FYI. So anyway, now we can load up our guy here. Recording. Streaming. And then old man here. There we go. Nice clean ZBrush here. And then I was just talking about something. So we were playing this one. Oh yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and Z-remesh this guy. How much time we got? We got about 15 minutes left. So I've got this guy ready to go. So what I'm going to do is go to Subtool, duplicate him. And we can turn off his lines again. And if we want to, we're going to Z-remesh this thing. We're going to keep our groups. I'm going to turn the smooth groups down just a bit. And then we'll do adapt the size down just a bit and target polygon count of 5. We have X turned on. So I'm going to go ahead and Z-remesh him. And actually, I probably should clean up that poly group over here and this poly group right here as well. But we'll see how it does. Okay, so now we have these polygroups controlling our surface topology, which is fine. And even at this point, you could go through here. If you don't like the midline, which it gets a little bit weird up in here, but what you can do is just really quickly, I'm going to hold down Alt. Hold down Alt and Z-remesh, and that'll give you a new midline algorithm here. Oh, actually, that's not too bad either. All right, so let's hold down Alt and Z-remesh. So 2 algorithms down the middle of your face. Remesh workflow of a complex shape. That's just really boring. I would say you could set up polygroups in Z-remesh, or you could just decimate it down, which is, oh boy, that didn't work so hot. Let's do Z-remesh on this thing, no Alt. But yeah, the reason why I wouldn't want to go, it's just boring. It's just like hand retopologizing a really complex shape, or a bunch of polygroups and Z-remeshing, or going into another program and using their topology tools like Maya or Topogun or Modo. They all have really good topology tools now. What in the heck is going on here? Let me do merge stray groups here. Hold on. Polygroups. Z-remesher, target count here. Let's turn that smooth groups down a little bit more. Maybe I should just turn that off. Or, you know what I should probably do is go in manually and polish these polygroup borders. I'll try that in just a second, because I don't want it getting caught up in like little squiggly areas trying to build that in, which it could sometimes do. So smoothing out your borders is probably a good idea. Yeah, let's do that. So again, we can go over here to our masking menu, and you could mask your borders, and then you could grow that mask just once here, and then invert that. Let me see, mask by borders. X turned on. Oh, sorry, mask by groups. We don't have any open borders, duh. Grow that mask, invert that mask, and then just do a quick polish by features. I'm going to do open circle just to maintain my forms a little bit better. And now when we go here to Z-remesher, maybe it'll work better. Oh, complex shape from Fusion to ZBrush. Yeah, if we have enough time after this, I can. Again, I'll keep pimping my channel. I do go back and forth in Fusion 360 to ZBrush in this one here. If you go down to working with imported objects, we go from Fusion to ZBrush, and then ZBrush back into Fusion with a, so we did like a little concept sculpt of a little piece, and then we go and rebuild this stuff back in Fusion. There you can do sculpt bodies if you have nice perfect quads, or if you have something like this, you could just go back through here with your sketches and just recreate the shape with your sketches. So you can do concepting in ZBrush and throw it into Fusion for the final, or vice versa. It's kind of up to you and how you want to work. Okay, so if you want to clean up some of this stuff. Let's hit Control W on this one and Control W on this one. And that one worked okay. And let's see if we can do like half. There we go. That's good enough. And I'm going to go ahead and make these into one. Okay, so we have our polygroups here. And if we have our high res still showing, I'm just going to show his new Z-remeshed head in this body here. We're going to go to project all, make sure everything's fine. Oh, his nose is getting a little bit crunchy. Let's see. Let me do a quick, what am I looking for here? Close holes, mirror and weld, both of these. And you could also manually retopologize. We did that. If you go to, there's been a bunch of places we've done this. Off the top of my head, if you go to, because we can clean up this topology fairly easily as well manually. You know what, we'll go through it too. But if you want to go back through, oops, it's not on this one. This would be on my channel here. Live stream full episodes. And I think there should be a giant anteater. Yeah. So on this giant anteater, what we do is just bring in this mesh and retopologize it. So that's another instance where we've done that. And like I said before, we've done that a bunch of times too. But if you do have pretty good geometry, it's just a little borked in one of your areas, what you can do is you can clone that off. And then you can go in here and you go to Insert Z-Sphere. And then I'm just going to show the Z-Sphere with original high-res topology. And then we're going to hit X to go across X symmetry. And then E to scale it down. So it's just out of the way. And then we're going to go to Dynamesh resolution down to 0, density down to 0, edit topology. Oh wait, we don't want to go to edit topology. We want to go down here to topology, and we want to go to select topology, grab our clone, and now we can edit this thing. Let's go ahead and control drag, control shift, tap to bring everything else back. Oh, and it looks like when we Z-remeshed, I forgot, what you wanted to do before you Z-remesh is project all, so you could get that back and then Z-remesh, but we'll fix that in a second. So I'm going to go matte cap gray, and turn off transparency here. And then we have X symmetry turned on, so when we go through here, we can just hold down Alt, and then you can go through here, whoops, edit topology. And then you can go through here and you can hold down Alt, and you can just delete all this stuff here, and then you can just redraw it like so. Oops, there you go. For instance. So that's another way you can go through here and manually just kind of build up your geometry. But I did get some bork geometry in there, so we're going to go ahead and delete that. And we're going to go back to our mesh here, and we're just going to undo back. So I can first, this is where we are. I'm going to do a quick project all. There we go. Get our forms back a little bit better. And even while it's having trouble in here, if you see any trouble spots, you can go through here and say, hey, let's do a quick close holes, mirror and weld. And you can ease some of those transitions in here. And you know what? That Boolean probably wasn't helping us. I probably should have gone through there and Dynameshed that. Because those are giving us some very, very harsh lines here. Let's go back here. So let's go ahead and Dynamesh that, hit X to go across X symmetry here, and we'll turn on a Fline. We'll smooth these transitions out. And then I'm just going to run a macro to do that whole polish by polygroup border there. And now we can just do a Z-remesh, X turned on, half depth size, keep groups. Good enough. Okay. Academy of Art University Game Development says, thanks for all your demos as always. If you weren't busy answering all of our questions, what would you be sculpting or would like to demo something for yourself? I'd like to do more mech and weapon stuff. I just have to have my ZBrush set up at home a little bit more like my work setup, because that's all I do at work. So that would probably help. Let's go ahead and smooth some of this stuff out too. So probably that. Also more environment stuff would be cool. We could have some more fun with that in upcoming. So let's go ahead and again, I'm just going to do a quick projectile, and then we'll go ahead and zero mesh this again. And I have half, keep groups on. There we go, much nicer. And even some of this stuff I can go ahead and start cleaning up a little bit if I see any kind of, you can do the merge stray groups we've been talking about a lot. So for instance, this little corner right here, let's see if merge stray groups will grab that one. There we go, it did. Let me go ahead and smooth that out a little bit. And then again, do a quick projectile. Looking good so far. Zero mesh half. Merge stray groups. Perfect. Let's do another projectile. Zero mesh half. Alrighty, I think we're about close. So I'm going to do another projectile, and I think we're good to go. So now that we got this guy nice and polygrouped up so we can animate him, and we got our details here, what we're going to basically do is, let's go back to matcap here. We'll turn off polyframe. So we're going to do projectile, and then Control D, which is adding a subdivision over here under geometry, and then doing another projectile. Control D, and you don't even need to see the other geometry. You can go to solo mode. You do need to have it turned on, but you don't need to sit there and look at it. And then we'll do another quick projectile. And even my high-res source is what's causing this nastiness to happen in there, but we can fix that. And then Control D, projectile. Give it a second. And now if we go back and forth between here, here's our original, here's our new one. The original is the exact same, so I'm going to delete that one. And now we've got this one here, subdivision levels of 1 all the way up through 4, and we have all our detail back. So now we're free to go back in here and start modifying this thing. So preferences, edit, turn off align cursor to surface, and then go through here and smooth this up a little bit, and then subdivide it up 1, and smooth these nostrils out. So yeah, on the high res, I should have gotten rid of that Boolean, or not gotten rid of it, but like went through and modified it a bit so it didn't have that super sharp cut in here. Possibly the same thing of a mouth, but I think we did smooth that out. There we go. So now we've got much nicer topology, and then we can go through and do blend shapes and stuff. Jimmy says, you know how to stop ZBrush from covering the taskbar every time it opens. That's a good one. That might be a good hashtag #AskZBrush on Twitter. I'm not aware of it. Of course, I'm only using ZBrush in about a third of my screen right now. So I don't need to worry about that. But at work, yeah, it's the whole monitor, and it does cover the taskbar. I'm not sure about that one. I do have that macro posted somewhere. Actually, I didn't even make this macro. I think I got this from the ZBrush guys. Hold on. I got it somewhere. Let me think. Google Drive. All right, we got about 5 minutes left. Let me see if I can do polish. I like how I do a search for my Google Drive and I just get a bunch of pictures of my dog when I type in search for polish. Okay, let's do polygroup. I thought I did. Give me a second. My drive, transfer. I don't know why I'm just really avoiding throwing it up here really quick. All right, give me a second. Okay, my PC. And oh, you could also just record it. So if you want to, you could do a Z repeat it and do a recording, or you can just go in here to your macros and take a new macro and just record. Basically, all I'm doing is masking my groups, inverting, or masking, growing, inverting, polish by features, and then you just hit stop, just like recording an action in Photoshop. That's all it's really doing. But if we go to ZBrush 4.8, Z startup, macros, miscellaneous, 7-zip, Add archive. Sure. Polish polygroup border here. All right. Share. Link. Can view. Copy. Done. There you go. Download that. Extract it into your Zebras408 Z Startup Macros Miscellaneous, and you can just, I don't need the zip file anymore. But when you get that, you'll see there's these two, and then when you go back into your macros, you'll have Polish by polygroup border in there. Cool. All right, guys, I'm gonna head out. And this stuff is already being backed up on my YouTube channel. So if you did miss it, you can go back in here to just go to my video, go home, and then here we go. So we're streaming this live on YouTube right now. So it'll be up on demand when you're good to go. Cool. All right, everybody. Thanks for showing up. Oh, this is one thing I forgot to mention. Just really quickly, one thing you can do if you wanted to do a more mechanical thing is I can duplicate this off. We'll go to like subdivision level of 2, delete higher, delete lower, and then immediately you can go in here to our edge loops. We can throw some panel loops on here. So if we want to, we can say thickness up, and we can polish this up a lot if we want to. And we'll go to elevation of -100. So there we go. We can start panel looping this guy out. So if you wanted to do some like, what's that movie that just came out? I forget. But there you can do like little mechanical robot in here. And even with this thing, you can go through here and we could even polish this even more if we go to polish by features. Where are we at? Polish by features, open circle. We can just polish this down and start getting this stuff. And then you can drag your alphas and do all sorts of hard surface stuff in here. So a lot of really cool ways to go through here. And you can even do your live booleans in here. Whatever you want to do to start making this whatever you'd like. Oh, another thing I forgot to bring up is if we duplicate this and we go here, let's go up to 3. There's also panel loop presets in the Z Tool Master. This is Chivang and Joseph Druss made this. And you can go through here and you can say, what kind of panel loops do I want? Ooh, I want the one that kind of bumps out a little bit. So we can grab that one and then hit yes, select a preset, and that'll bump it out. It's like, well, it bumps out a little too much. So you can undo that, and then all these edge loop properties are set up, so where all you got to do is just drag down that thickness and hit panel loops. And you can dial in exactly that hard surface look you're looking for. So, all sorts of cool stuff. Cool. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to head out. Y'all have a good rest of your week. It's almost Friday. Yay!